Episode 1 of A Bloody Lucky Day starts with Oteik, a taxi driver at Samam Taxi Company, having a dream of mini pigs appearing, and he thinks it will be his lucky day. The day started well with Oteik, and he had many customers, including one of his favorite influencers. He tries to call his daughter, who goes to Sion University, so she can video call with the influencer, but she does not pick up. Sometime during the day, his son Sunghyun calls him to say that he had gambled his daughter, Sungmi, tuition money, and his mother is on the way to Seoul to talk to Sungmi about taking a year off. Oteik runs to the subway and arrives in time before Mirim boards the train. He convinces her to let him drive to Sion University. Oteik and Mirim separated because Oteik was drowning in debt. On the ride to the university, Oteik tells his wife that he is working hard and is optimistic that he will be done paying his debts in a year and will buy a house in Seoul. He wants the family to reunite, but Mirim does not believe him because she knows how much debt Oteik owes. Oteik insists that even though he might not be able to pay his debts, he can manage to pay rent and would like them to stay together. Mirim tells him it depends on whether Sungmi would like to stay with him, and she has not been picking up either of their calls. Oteik tells his wife that he can help pay for Sungmi's tuition and that Sunghyun has lost gambling since he has been saving up. Mirim warns him not to go to a loan shark again since he cannot go through the stress of dealing with Shylocks. Elsewhere, Hwang Seung-kyu seems to be looking into something and gets a call to go to Seoul to meet with someone. The person claims to have some information about her son. She sits at a cafe watching a video clip of a birthday party. One of the people in the video freaks out upon seeing a masked man watching him. She calls someone, saying she was supposed to meet with Lee-deun, but he does not show up, and his phone is not going through. She asks the person if anything could have happened, and the person tells him that Lee-deun is at the hospital after a fire accident. The person tells him that Lee-deun is in the intensive care unit. Oteik calls his friend Ju-hwan to borrow some money. He does not have any savings, and he needs to find some money to pay the 4 million tuition. Meanwhile, Seung-kyu arrives at the hospital and asks for Lee-deun's room. On the way to the room, she chances upon the masked man from the video and runs after him but loses him at the elevators. She goes back to Lee-deun's room to ask about the doctor who just left, and the nurse refers to the person as Dr. Jeom-hyuk-soo. Suddenly, another nurse calls, reporting a code blue, and Lee-deun dies. A man walks into Oteik's cab and asks him to drive to Walldong. At first, Oteik tells him to take another cab since it is rotation time, but later, he decides to drive him. After arriving at his destination, the passenger asks Oteik if he could drive him to Mukpo. Oteik insists that it is his rotation time and that he needs to drive back to the company. The man insists and even offers to pay extra. Oteik thinks about the tuition money and casually asks if the man is willing to pay him 1 million won, and he is bewildered when the man agrees. He agrees to meet with the man in 30 minutes. Seung-kyu causes a scene at the hospital talking about a mysterious man killing Lee-deun and that the same man killed her son. The nurses called security and drove Seung-kyu out of the hospital. Meanwhile, Oteik tries to convince the next shift driver, Yang Sung-taek, to take the night off so he can take the Mukpo deal. Mr. Yang refuses to take the offer, and Oteik decides to blackmail him into agreeing to let him drive the night. Before leaving, Mr. Yang reminds Oteik that people get into problems when they start acting differently. Oteik meets with the man, and he is carrying a heavy suitcase. When he asks if he is taking a boat for Mukpo, the man says he is escaping by smuggling out of Korea. Oteik thinks the man is joking and says he should hurry and take him to Mukpo so he does not get caught. The man mentions that Oteik would become an accomplice, but soon after, he says he is joking. Oteik starts the drive to Mukpo. Seung-kyu goes to the police station and meets with Jungmin. She tells him about the man he saw at the hospital, whose name is Jeom-hyuk-soo, and asks him to check the surveillance cameras. Jungmin refuses to reopen the case since Seung-kyu does not provide enough evidence. He believes that Seung-kyu's son, Yoon-ho, committed suicide, but Seung-kyu is convinced that he did not. She asked someone to do a background check on Jeom Hyuk-soo, a Hanguk University hospital resident. On the way to Mokpo, the passenger tells Oh-taek the story about the accident that made him never ride in buses again. He says that he thought he would die but miraculously survived, but the doctor told him that his amygdala was damaged during the accident. He explains that the amygdala is responsible for feelings of fear, and since the accident, he never fears anything. He also tells him that he never feels pain and shows it by hurting his arm. Oh-taek freaks out, and he almost gets into an accident. Elsewhere, Seung-kyu gets Hyuk-soo's address and drives there at night. A neighbor tells her that nobody is in the house and that he saw the doctor taking a taxi about an hour ago with a huge carry-on. Seung-kyu tries calling the number, but it does not get through. Meanwhile, the passenger starts telling Oh-taek about how enjoyable his life is when there is neither fear nor pain. He talks about killing people and says he has killed before, and on the same day, he did kill someone. Oh-taek asks him to stop joking, but the man insists he is telling the truth. Later, he tells him that he was just joking. Later that night, Seung-kyu breaks into Hyuk-soo's house. He finds a medical book with pictures on different pages, and one of the pictures is of her son Yoon-ho. Seung-kyu sits on the bed, crying and clutching Yoon-ho's photo. The man aboard Oh-taek's taxi asks to take a bathroom break. They run into another driver whom they had had a confrontation with on the road, and the driver insults and humiliates Oh-taek. The man later finds the driver in his truck and kills him, just as he had earlier illustrated to Oh-taek. As he is getting ready to cut the aorta and bleed out the driver, Oh-taek starts knocking furiously on the door, asking him to open up. When he does not open, Oh-taek thinks he is not around, but the beeping of the microwave indicates otherwise. The episode ends with the killer inside the truck holding a knife and waiting while Oh-taek deliberates whether to open the door. The episode review. The first episode of A Bloody Lucky Day is intense and laden with intriguing mysteries. Although it introduces the characters, they are all still a puzzle until the end. Other than knowing Oh-taek, the taxi driver, and his background, there is nothing known about the mysterious man in his car other than he might be a psychotic killer and the woman looking for his son. The mysterious man's duality is as terrifying as he easily switches from an easygoing passenger to a terrifying one, making the viewer as confused and terrified as Oh-taek. Who is the doctor that the woman is looking for, and is he a serial murderer? Are the photos that Seung-kyu finds of his murder victims? The episode ends on a cliffhanger, and we are all eager to go to the next episode. What is the story behind Yoon-ho's case that the police think he committed suicide while his mother believes that he was murdered?